All right, so today we as a group thought we'd look at D&C 45. There's a couple interesting things in here. I have a few notes on a few things that kind of stick out more to me, but I mean there's a lot of stuff in all of it, right?
Right.
But different parts stick out to different people. One thing, just a quick little prelude. I think this part's pretty cool here, where this is actually if you know about the polar configuration in the imagery there, where it says Yahweh shall set his foot upon this mount, it's talking about Mars. So
Yeah, if you know anything about if you know much about the polar configuration, Mars is often referred to as a foot.
yes, and especially when you go look at the context of the time that's going on here, which we'll explain as we go through the verses, it really fits. If you know this imagery.
What you have here in Doctrine and Covenants section 45, especially verses 28 through 50 through 59, is that basically the timeline's laid out. The timeline of the second coming is laid out.
Parts of the events before the second coming, just to clarify a little bit.
Well, yeah, but it's a timeline of events that culminates in the second coming of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it starts actually with the restoration, because when the time of the Gentiles has come in, restoration was one could say that the time of the Gentiles coming, and some say that the time of the Gentiles coming in was with the restoration. Some say it's with when Yeshua, when the gospel was sent out from the Jews to the Gentiles.
So, this is probably a technical point here, and I think it gets clarified further down. But the times of the Gentiles come in, I think it's more dealing with the ending part of the times of the Gentiles. So for the times of the Gentiles is like 2,000 years, just in general, right? Because the different 2,000 periods, this is the Gentile times, but there's special wording for the end of the time of the Gentiles, or when they're full, right?
Right. Fulfilled. Right. Yeah.
And I do believe that's what this is talking about, is at the end of it. Okay.
Right.
We can maybe just read. You want to read verse 28, Ben, since you started kind of going there?
And when the times of the Gentiles is come in, a light shall break forth among them that sit in darkness, and it shall be the fullness of my gospel. So this light breaking forth among them that sit in darkness, that is descriptive of any time there is a restoration, that the light breaks forth and among people that are sitting in darkness. But at the same time, most particularly, this is talking about the ends of the times of the Gentiles, particularly from the time of the restoration to today, in my opinion. That to me is what this is talking about.
Okay. And then one thing, it's interesting that would possibly support that, they receive it not, right? So they had a time to receive some stuff and they didn't, right?
Yep, they had a chance to receive it and they didn't receive it.
Right, which would make sense, because if it's given to them just at the very end, right. So one thing we need to make sure.
Here you go further on in that verse, it really clarifies it. And they turn their hearts from me because of the precepts of men.
Well, I actually think the second part is the second part in verse 29 is actually the key to it. For they perceive not the light, and that was the issue with the early restoration with Joseph Smith. They perceived not the light that they were receiving.
Right. I would agree with that. And so that's just where sometimes some of these phrases, we need to get more context to have a better idea what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to go along with that, if this was what I was initially thinking at the very end, they wouldn't have had time yet. So I do think the context is saying that this is before the end, so Joseph Smith end earlier, right?
And when it's talking about in that generation, it's talking about basically in the space of that, in the space, from the point of the restoration to the end times.
Right. So maybe let's just go look at the word generation. It's an interesting word when you actually look at it in 1828, right?
Yeah, well, that's because, generation is actually, while most of it points to a particular time period or what have you, it's not every definition points to that.
Right. And so just since we're talking about it, let's go through this, right, Masters?
Mm-hmm.
And let me get how to spell, because spelling's not my strong point. Okay. Kesley, you want to read some definitions here for us?
Okay. Generation, the act of begetting, procreation as of animals.
So I think that is what people by default think of, and maybe the only thing they think of, right? It's not the only one though.
Or three is another one that is a default for many people. The people of the same.
Sure. Yeah, at the same time period. Yeah. I can see those two, but let's go. Let's read them all.
Production, formation as the generation of sounds or of curves or equations.
Right. As in generated equation, what have you. Yeah.
Yeah, as in you're creating something, right?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. A single succession in natural descent as the children of the same parents, hence an age. Thus we say the third, the fourth, or the 10th generation.
So this is probably what gets thought of most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 3, I already looked at it, but let's just read it again.
The people of the same period or living at the same time.
Right. And sometimes I've heard people claim a generation's like 50 years or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give or take, or 40.
At least 20. At least 20.
At least
Yeah. There's a whole
range
that people will use for that, right?
Right.
Just to confuse the hell out of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so number 4.
Genealogy, a series of children or descendants from the same stock.
With the LDS Church or Brigham White Church, that goes along with it a lot, right? Because they like to do genealogic work. That would be number 4, right? 5.
Family, race.
And that is actually the generation, and that and 6, progeny, offspring. Those two are the definitions of generation which come into play here, which make it possible that even with that starting at the time of the early restoration, it could still be that generation.
Right, because it is still part of the family, or because like the family of Yahweh, right? It's a set of believers, okay? So just FYI, for those who are aware of various things and discussions, these last 2 are very helpful in understanding the last part of Matthew 23, which some people will try to say that it's something else
where some people will use the last part of Matthew 23 to say that Jesus himself is a false prophet.
Correct. You use those 2 definitions and it gets rid of that issue. So, but anyways, I shared the same screen again. That's not what I meant to do. I gotta hit the right button. Oh, okay. So do you see OneNote now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyways, okay, that's what I want. Okay. So, and And in the generation of the times of the Gentiles. So like this could be the family of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So fulfilled is the end portion of it, right?
Right, right,
It's ending point.
right.
It's done.
Mhm.
Which
From that failed restoration will bring on the time of the end of the Gentile, the end of the time of the Gentiles.
I do believe Joe Smith did, so this is just clarification here, and I'm pretty sure you believe the same way, same thing. Joseph Smith did what he was supposed to, but the problem was there was another apostasy after.
Right. Well, and every time there's my point is that every time there's an apostasy, that means that we not necessarily that the restoration failed, but that we failed the restoration.
Right.
But either way, the experiment has met with less than success.
Oh, and here's another thing that we need to keep in mind. Is that with every apostasy, there will come another restoration. So, so the restoration is not complete.
Well,
that restoration was not meant to be complete.
Yeah, so to clarify, the restoration with Joseph Smith, if you go look at what is it, First Nephi 13, it actually brings out how
he restored much. He didn't restore all.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be complete. It wasn't meant to be complete.
Right, and then there's a verse in First Nephi 14 and tons of other verses, and one of my favorites in an actual JST, it brings out how the mighty and strong one who comes after will restore everything.
Correct, and
it's in multiple places.
That will bring the fulfillment of the times of the Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it happens like right at the same time.
Yeah. The point, but the point does remain that when an apostasy occurs, a particular generation has been less than successful.
Yes.
And so maybe failure is not the word to use, but I would say less than successful.
Well, it's just where the people didn't heed it, right?
It's where the people didn't perceive the light.
Right.
That's what happened.
And sadly, there's a lot of people who claim to believe the restoration who are trying to disprove parts of the restoration, like the JST, among other things, and just basically joining the Protestants. And
well, the main reason why people would want to disprove the JST is because the JST actually, in many ways, marries the New Testament to the Old Testament.
I can see that. What I would say even more bluntly is that the JST exposes their lies and their fallacies, and they don't like that.
Now, I like verse 32.
Okay, you want to read it?
But my disciples shall stand in holy places, the set apart place, walking in the set apart way. My disciples shall stand in holy places. It's not talking about New Jerusalem. It's not talking about Jerusalem. It's talking about standing in the set apart way. When he's talking about standing in holy places. And shall not be moved.
So I see what you're saying, but the context here, I wonder if it is actually, if the disciples here, and we could go through and figure this out more together. But I do wonder if this is the mighty and strong one and his helper. And they're actually, I do believe they're going to be in Jerusalem.
Well, I agree with that, but it's disciples. Jesus had disciples who weren't apostles.
I agree. And so
Yeshua had disciples that weren't apostles. Yeshua had disciples who didn't even who were not prestigious, and he had disciples that weren't even named.
Oh yeah. They're
when I look at the word disciples, I'm just see these are the people who follow me. They stand in the set apart way, and they are
Right.
not.
And I definitely see that, and I'm not completely disagreeing with you here, but I wonder if the context might be a little different. But let's read through and see what happens.
Let's take a look at
Because
it.
I will say, although the apostles have a particular job that I think gets glorified more than it should. Okay.
Right.
It also just the everyday believer is where it's really at.
Right.
Because if the everyday, lack of a better term, this may not be the best term, but if the everyday believer did not follow Yahweh's ways, no one would want to join, no matter what anybody did, including the apostles, because they'll look at the examples and how they're taking Yahweh's name in vain. And so why would they want to join? Right.
So this is the other reason why I say it's generally on a general level, probably it's the job of every disciple to stand in holy places, to stand in the set apart way, not to and not be moved. Because as I look at the next section, it says, but among the wicked, and that's a general characterization. Men shall lift up their voices and curse God and die. Whereas my disciples is a different group. They're the righteous. They stand in the set apart way and are not moved by,
right. And so
by all these things.
This is kind of a vague verse, because one way with the context that's coming up, the way that I read that is Revelations 11 brings out how the two will have fire come out of their mouth. Fire is judgment.
Right.
And that judgment will cause them to die, which is sealing power, like in Acts 5, right, with Ananias and his wife.
And the interesting thing is what's in verse 31 that might inform this.
Okay, well, let's because I just put some highlights.
So verse 31, I have it.
Oh, okay, you want to read it?
Yep. And there shall be men standing in that generation that shall not pass until they shall see an overflowing scourge, for a desolating sickness shall cover the land. And then you move into, but my disciples shall stand in holy places and shall not be moved. But among the wicked, men shall lift up their voices and curse God and die. So that does give it it does connect there a little bit.
Sure. Here, let me get it up so we can just have it. So let me pause for 1 second while I get it ready.
Okay.
So when I brought forward my when I bring forward what I believe verse 32 is saying, there is an application of this that applies to the two witnesses, but there's an application of this that applies to everybody, that each one of us can do who claims to be a disciple of Yeshua HaMashiach. And that is to stand in holy places and not be moved, regardless of regardless of the craziness that's about to ensue around us. Because that craziness is going to come. Well, you think you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, no, I understand. I understand that, but
so
at the same time,
I'm just saying it's already crazy, but we ain't seen nothing yet.
Right. Right. But in the meantime, right, we still have a lot of noise out there. We still have and I like the application that you're putting out there, Ben, that, the disciples of Yeshua will choose to stand in holy places and not be moved.
I mean, because here you have that the promise of the overflowing scourge, the desolating sickness covering the land. This is insanity. land being laid desolate by disease.
Right. So one thing I'll just say real quick, I do believe that scriptures are worded vaguely, like this one kind of is on purpose, okay? Because there are multiple applications, and the way it's worded is done on purpose to have that possible. And although I'm focusing on one aspect, Ben's focusing on another, prophecy does bring out how there will be a wave of righteousness.
Yep.
It's more than just two.
Right.
It would be a pretty lame wave if it was just two. So I
Yeah, it'd be
anyways.
more like this. Instead of whoa, right?
Yeah, as in the stadium waves. Yeah, that's not a wave, right? That's two fools. But anyways,
Yeah, that's clowns.
but I do believe various times it's worded vaguely to because it's referring to both at the same time. Those are just two different angles. Okay.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. For my part, I simply I want to give somebody that I want to give people something that I want to give everybody something that they can stand on.
Right. And if anything, we're both focused on different aspects or different angle, which is good, right? But I see
Absolutely, it is absolutely a wonderful thing to be able to see the levels and parties within and actually different angles even that you can look at these things from. So it's a wonderful little exercise that we have going on here.
But those two, they complement each other and not contradict each other, right?
That's right. That's right. Because the only reason that the two can do what they have, the only reason the two can do what they do in Revelations chapter 11 is because they have chosen to stand in holy places.
Correct. And so those two are following or doing what the other people are doing, right?
On that level, and then they will literally stand in the holy place.
Right.
And will not be moved from it as they
they'll be there for 3.5 years, right? Upsetting people.
right, trying to save who will be saved.
Right. They're not doing it just to be annoying. They're doing it to try to save those who will listen and hear Yahweh's words in their mouth before the world is ripe to the point, well, they will be stoned, right? And there's multiple places it talks about how, I'm sidetracking a little bit, but how the wicked will be destroyed before the second coming, right? And so this event that's going to happen, it's going to destroy the sons of perditions, which are the most wicked, right? So, but anyways, there's a lot of connections. It's just in prophecy, they'll focus on different points at different times and sometimes use slightly different imagery, but you can put them together if you know what the imagery is talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and so yeah, and then of course afterwards, it's also this whole promise here is encapsulated in tales of calamity.
Correct.
Desolating sickness, earthquakes in diverse places, desolations. All this before we get down to the moment of truth in Jerusalem when the witnesses are raised.
Right. But this kind of goes along with the pattern in the Exodus with Moses, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of not fun stuff going on, but at the same time, the righteous who listened to Yahweh's anointed servant Moses didn't get harmed by those things, did they?
They made it through. They made it through to their promised land.
Yeah.
There's multiple levels of meaning in that.
Yes, there is. Because and that's intentional. But all right. So We just did 31 and 32. I think let's do 33. Charles, are you willing to read 33?
Yes,
Big enough for you?
let me read 33.
Yeah, 33.
And there shall be earthquake also in diverse places, and many dissolutions, yet men will harden their beings against one, and they will take up the sword on the sword one against another, and they will kill one another.
So one thing, a little interesting tidbit. There's groups that track earthquakes, and including governments, and because of prophecies like this, how earthquakes will happen in diverse places, and there'll be more than there was before. The official earthquake trackers from governments will lie about how we're not having more earthquakes, where we actually are than we have in the past.
And here's the thing, and they will take up the sword one against another, and they will kill one another, is actually a reference to Doctrine and Covenants section 87, which people said was fulfilled during the Civil War, but which was not.
No, so this is a related subject, and we'll just maybe show it real quick. But D&C 87 is not about the Civil War. It's about what's going to happen before the second coming. And there's various key words in here that don't match the Civil War, but do match the second coming, or the stuff that happens before the second coming.
That do match what is being laid out for us to enter into.
Right.
So, for instance, here, to highlight this point, let's start with 3. For behold, the southern states shall be divided against the northern states, and the southern states will call all on other nations. See, this sounds kind of like it could be the Civil War, even the nation of Great Britain, as it is called, and they shall call, but here you go. And they shall also call upon other nations. Did Great Britain have to call on other nations in order to defend themselves against other nations when they sent the troops over to Canada? No, they did not.
No.
And then war shall be poured out upon all nations, and it shall come war poured out on all nations, not wars in isolated areas.
Yeah. So this part right here, right? The Civil War was only us, not the whole world, right?
Right.
So,
and it shall come to pass after many days, slaves shall rise up against their masters. Now, in the Civil War, the slaves didn't rise up against their masters. They were freed and joined the Union so that they could free their families. They weren't actually rising up against their masters.
No. Oh, yeah. No. They
The
weren't.
slaves that will rise up against their masters, you see them on the street every day. You see them at your place of work. You see them because the entire system that we live under has relegated every single human being to slavery, to a certain degree of slavery.
yeah.
And their masters will be marshaled and disciplined for war. So basically, we're talking about the civilian populace rising up against the government and their military. And it shall come to pass that the remnants who are left of the land will marshal themselves, and shall become exceedingly angry, and shall vex the Gentiles with a sore vexation. And so what has to happen is
So the remnants, I just want to say, like, remnants, Lamanites against the Gentiles.
Yes, the Lamanites will also rise up.
Yep.
Now, yes, during the Civil War, there were some minor Indian troubles, but that's not the same kind of thing. They didn't vex the Gentiles exceedingly.
Yeah.
No.
So this goes along with other prophecies here that's going to happen before the second coming about the Lamanites coming up. right? So
And this is also, and verse 6 correlates to the horsemen of death and hell in Revelations. And thus with the sword and by bloodshed the inhabitants of the earth shall mourn. And with famine and plague and earthquake and the thunder of heaven and the fierce and vivid lightning also shall the inhabitants of the earth be made to feel the wrath, the indignation, and the chastening hand of an almighty God, until the consumption decreed hath made a full end of all nations. This was never about the Civil War, because the Civil War was not making a full end of all nations.
yeah. So there's two big points about upon war will be poured upon all nations, and the destruction of all nations. That didn't happen at the Civil War.
And why does this happen? That the cry of the saints, which also correlates so beautifully to Revelation, that the cry of the saints and of the blood of the saints shall cease to come up into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, or the Lord of hosts, from the earth to be avenged of their enemies.
Yeah, so just in case people don't know, that's not the Lord of the Sabbath, even though it looks close to it. That's the Lord of hosts, as in the host of heaven of the planets. Okay, we'll get into that more later.
Wherefore, stand ye in holy places. It comes back to where we've just been. Stand ye in holy places, and be not moved until the day of the Lord come.
So, just something to think about. And we are supposed to stand in Yahweh's path, but in the last days, people are going to gather in Zion. Okay, so
people will be gathered to the lands of their inheritance, whether it be Zion or Jerusalem.
Correct.
Because the Jews will gather to Jerusalem, along with
Jews, you mean the true Jews? You mean?
Yes, the true Jews. Yes.
Right, and so I'll just share something on that issue real quick. There's if I can push the right button. You guys want to push my buttons? Anyways, sorry, just a plain joke.
Here.
So, let's see. Josh, you want to read this one? D&C 45, 24 through 25?
24 through 25?
Yeah, the highlighted one. Is it big enough for you, or should I make it?
I can see it. That's fine. And this I, Yahweh, have told you, Joseph, concerning Jerusalem. And when that day shall come, shall a remnant be scattered among all nations. But they shall be gathered again, but they shall remain scattered until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So the times of the Gentiles have not been fulfilled, correct?
Because they're still scattered.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right, but what I'm trying to bring out here, here's a D&C verse that says that Jerusalem is not what people claim. The state of Jerusalem,
The state of Israel is not what
right.
is
Now,
not
it's
what
the state
people
of Jerusalem,
claim.
it's the state of Israel, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's not what people claim it to be. That's
No, it's not. No, it's not.
And it will not be it will not be that. It will not be what people want it to be until the people who are living in it are keeping Torah.
Right, and they're not.
Yeah.
They're if the people there are any Jews, it's that are in charge there, it's the fake Jews. But anyways, that's another subject.
Yeah, that's a subject for another. That's a subject for another day.
Yeah, that's a very controversial subject. Of course, probably to some degree, everything we cover is controversial. But what isn't controversial, right?
Right. But the mainstream stance on anything is never controversial. Wherefore stand ye in holy places. Again, it comes back to that.
Be
When
not
this war when this war ensues, are we to fight in it? No. We are to keep Torah.
Yep. All right. Are we done with D&C 87?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to 45. I'm trying to remember. I think
Yeah,
we did 31 and 32. So I think we're on. Oh,
We did
and
33.
Charles read 33.
Yep.
We're on 34. Kesley, will you read 34?
Yes. And now when I, the Lord, had spoken these words unto my disciples, they were troubled.
I can definitely understand, right?
Yeah.
And just for context purposes, if we go up further in this is talking about, so this is about Joseph Smith getting the JST and dealing with Matthew 23 and 24, right?
Yep.
Right.
Just for context purposes.
Yep. Now, the interesting thing, now I can honestly say that for a very long time, I was exceedingly troubled by these things. For a very long time, I was exceedingly troubled by the end times prophecies.
Well, I mean, yeah, because it's desolation.
But you know why? But I'll tell you why I was troubled. Because I wasn't keeping Torah.
Yeah, right. You had something to fear, right?
I had something to fear. The facts of the matter are, if you're keeping Torah, death is nothing to fear. You'll be given a white robe. And be allowed to rest.
I like what he says in 35.
Okay, you want to read it?
Sure. And I'm assuming that's Yeshua, said unto them, be not troubled, for when all these things shall come to pass, ye may know, not just believe, but know that the promises which have been made unto you shall be fulfilled. And what are those promises?
Oh, there's multiple of them, right? And one specifically for the Jews, that their people will come back into the covenant, right?
Correct.
Well, the main promise with regards to Israel is that God's not done with you yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
His hand is stretched out still.
Right.
And he's not done with
Still
them.
trying to gather you, and he's still gathering you.
Well, and along with this line here, there's multiple aspects going on here, but I'll bring this one up and then I'll bring up another one, is that Yeshua went to the Gentiles to get the Jews jealous, to get back to Torah, not to abandon, but to get them jealous, right? That's in prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way they will return to Yahweh's ways that he gave to them initially, but they then perverted and whored, right?
Twisted, perverted, twisted, and in some instances completely did away with. But anyway.
Right. And this is where we'd have to go on an instance by instance base, but those are good general statements, right?
Right. And I meant them that way.
Right.
Not trying to go into any specifics, but yes.
The other thing that in here is going on how Yahweh, Yeshua, knows all, right? Because he's saying that he is God, Elohim. He knows all, and because he knows all, he can foretell the future, which then you can see that he knows all and thus can trust him implicitly.
Yeah.
As in Lectures on Faith brings out in lectures
and then
3 and 4, if I remember correctly.
And then you will have the faith to move mountains
Yes.
because of the implicit trust and diligence that you have given in making the word your own.
I think and another thing I like in verse 35 is he's not talking about faith. He's talking about knowledge, that ye may know.
Right.
This
Yeah.
knowing is not faith. Knowing
Right.
is knowing.
Yes.
Right.
But
As
you
in
don't get
Alma
to know-
32 brings out, right?
but you don't get to knowledge without faith.
No, absolutely not.
And so
But that's where the troubling comes in, right? Because the
Right.
troubling helps us, or in many cases inspires us
Mhm.
to faith. So
Right.
the troubling is a necessary part of our individual development.
Right. I mean, there are
Right,
many.
because
path of
it
faith.
shows that there's things going on that we're concerned about, but
Mhm.
instead of doubting, we went to faith, right?
Correct. And once we pass that point, then we come to knowledge. Then we know that the
Right.
promises that have been made are going to be fulfilled.
Right. Though here it's interesting to me is that because Yeshua prophesied that this would happen long before it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we could know.
Yeah.
This is one of the purposes of prophecy, so that we can know that the promises that he makes are true.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
Right.
the first part of knowledge is knowledge through faith. That's the first step. It's you have
Right.
where that faith becomes the substance of things hoped for.
So
Right.
I will say this, just as in the Book of Mormon, when the signs of Yeshua's first coming happened, people saw the signs, but they didn't believe them, or they just thought it was happen chance or a lucky guess. I don't remember the exact word in the Book of Mormons, but it's something along that they were good guessers, right?
Yeah. Basically.
So without the faith, you'll see the same thing, but you will interpret it differently. As in, oh, they were lucky. I'll just say that was one damn lucky guess.
Yeah, and so my point is, with the vast majority of us being in that place where we have to exercise, where we're exercising faith because we don't have the knowledge.
Right.
The absolute. I've seen this. I know knowledge through absolute observation. And therefore we go on faith, and proceeding on faith brings the knowledge. You know, every science, every bit of thing everything that has ever been proven scientifically, it started off from the basis of faith. If I do this, this should happen.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I'll add more.
So
We could
so we
go a lot deeper in that, but yeah.
I decided not to, but anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot there's a lot in that, but yeah. But the whole thing is that that's how faith is the foundation of all knowledge.
Well, yes, and it sounds like you and I are saying the same thing, Ben, only in slightly different ways.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. I think let's go on to 36.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Charles, will you read 36?
Yes, I will read. And when the light shall begin in break forth, it shall be with the like unto a parable which I will show you.
So this is just to recap, we're getting the what was it?
Parable of the fig tree?
In one of the earlier verses, it talks about how we're getting to the end times, right? Or the end of the times of the Gentiles, right?
Yeah, 30.
Was it 30? Okay. Thank you for remembering the verse. So Joseph Smith was not at the end of the times of the Gentiles. He was near the end, but not at the end. The one at the end is the mighty and strong one, right?
Yeah, that is the new restoration.
Right. It's the one that's forthcoming.
That's the full restoration. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. It's another good point on that. It's the full one that's coming. And that light. Now it's interesting, and maybe this is a good sidetrack. That light, oops, I hit the wrong button. Light refers to Torah, right? And so since I'm bringing that up on this subject, that would probably be a good one just to at least briefly look at.
Oh, yeah, that's the next blog topic that I actually want to handle is how Torah was the light that God called.
Okay, so you pick one or two of these verses then, Ben, and read some, and we can.
Yeah. Thy word is a lamp unto Psalm 119, 105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
What is the lamp or the light?
Torah.
Right. Because Torah is his word, as in every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yah. Right? That is Torah. Everything that proceeds out of his mouth.
Proverbs 6:23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law, Torah, is light.
Now, I just will say the word literally behind that translation, law, is Torah. Okay, it literally is that.
And Torah is light, and reproofs and instructions are the way of life. Now, the interesting thing here is, people say when you preach Torah that you are taking their agency from them because you're calling what they do bad. But the point is, they don't have a choice if they don't know what's right.
Right. So along these lines, 2 Nephi 2, Alma 42, and Paul, but I don't remember where Paul off the top of my head, brings out without the law, Torah, there is no agency because you can't make a choice between right and wrong.
Because there's only darkness.
Well, there's nothing. There's no choice. There's no agency.
That's what I'm saying. It's a black hole. There's nothing.
All things.
I see.
As it says in 2 Nephi chapter 2, all things become a compound in one.
Right. So without the law, people who are taking away Torah are actually taking away agency, because without the law, Torah, there is no way you can choose from right and wrong, which what agency actually is.
Can we do a little sidetrack real quick? Can we look up?
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, we can do as many sidetracks if you want. So what do you want to do?
Reproof. As it says in Proverbs. Let's look up reproof.
Oh, in the 1828 dictionary?
Yeah.
As in reproofs of instruction.
Okay.
Yes. I'm curious.
No. That's I'm all for helping people understand and sidetracks. If anything, I might sidetrack more than anybody else, right? So.
Well, but the point is to learn something.
Oops. Oh, that's weird. Okay, you want to read it since you brought it up,
Sure.
Josh?
Yep. It's RE. There it is.
Did it? Did I spell it
1.
right? Okay.
Yep. Blame expressed to the face, censure for a fault, reprehension, okay, and blame cast, censure directed to a person. Okay, I just wanted to, okay. Because sometimes when I read words, I break the word down, right? And I broke that word down, and it was reproof of instructions. Now I understand that the actual definition of the word reproof is just a blame to the face, right? Or hey, you screwed this up or whatever.
Right, right.
But what was going through my head was reproof. Like every single time you are being preached the gospel, it is another proof of the instructions that you've already received.
Sure. I see what you're saying. So, but
Right.
what I see here with this definition of reproof is that because of the instructions of Torah, you're given blame for your wrongs, right?
Right.
But here's what I see in that.
Okay.
Leviticus chapter 19.
Okay, let me switch screens.
This is once again about how to love your neighbor.
Oh, and Leviticus is an amazing book in the scriptures.
Oh, yeah. I think there's reasons why mainstream demonizes these things because they don't want to live by them.
Okay, so
Well, yeah.
What verse do you want?
okay. Let's see. Go down.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'll pause while we're looking. Okay.
Yep. Pause it real quick. Go down a little further.
Okay.
Thou shalt not hate.
Oh, wait, say the verse numbers. They
In
didn't.
in Leviticus 19, what we were reading reminded me of these verses in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 17 and 18. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart.
Wait, that sounds like the renewed commandment in the New Testament that Yeshua gave, right?
Yeah.
And here we have, and now we have a colon, which connects the next part with what came before. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him.
So we are
Shout, as in thou should
required.
We are required to rebuke our neighbor when he's wrong.
Yep. Not according to our own feelings and our own ideas.
And we're not supposed to care about whether it's injured their feelings. It says rebuke.
Right. But what I'm saying is it should be according to Yahweh's word and not our own feelings, right?
Right, not according to our own feeling. This also hies back to Doctrine and Covenants section 121, but which we can look at in just a little bit after we're done here. Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Why? I am the Lord.
Which is basically saying, because I said so, right?
The reason I put that why in there is because once again, there's that colon that relates that statement, the statement before.
Right. He's like, because I said so. Just like parents, who Yeshua is the father, aka leader, and he knows better. Now, there are good, valid reasons to it, but here he just said, because I said so, right?
And how many times as those of us who are parents, how many times have we said that to our children? Why, Dad? Why? Because I said so. Stop asking questions. I said just because I said so.
So this also ties us back to in the current restoration, from the current restoration, Doctrine and Covenants section 121. So let's go.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show it from somewhere else. So let me just pause for a second. Okay, so here's D&C 121. It's a chiasm. I never try to bring out chiasms, right? I'm joking there. Anyways, so where do you want to start, Ben?
I'll start in verse 39.
Okay.
Where it starts talking about the sad examples that we have seen of mankind in general.
Okay.
We have learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of almost all men. As soon as they get a little, and by the way, almost all men is inclusive, men and women.
All right. Men is a term that's used for men and women, right?
It's a generic term, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, maybe I'll do it here live because this is a post I'm working on. I'll put adults.
Yep.
Because that's what's going on here. It's all adults, right? So,
Right.
As soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion.
Mhm.
Hence, many are called, but few are chosen. Now, here's how it should work. No power or influence can or ought to be maintained by virtue of the priesthood. Only by persuasion, by long suffering, by gentleness and meekness, and by love unfeigned. And how is it that the Lord in Leviticus 19 told us that we were to love our brothers? We'll find out a little bit more about that here. By kindness and pure knowledge, which shall greatly enlarge the soul without hypocrisy, and without guile, which shall greatly enlarge the soul that is without hypocrisy and without guile. Reproving betimes. Betimes means quickly, with sharpness. That is not unkind. Reproving quickly with sharpness is not unkind when moved upon by the Holy Ghost or Torah.
Mhm.
yeah,
The
yeah.
spirit of revelation.
And
then showing forth afterwards an increase of love. Now that does, that can be manifested both as teaching. That can be manifested both as teaching, both as, or in the ultra nice way of hugs, or what have you, Girl Scout cookies.
Particularly the Samoan ones, if anybody wants.
Give me my increase in love in Samoans. Okay.
Sorry.
And then showing forth afterwards an increase of love towards him whom thou hast reproved, lest he esteem thee to be his enemy. Now, in some instances, after you have reproved someone with sharpness, they may not allow you to show forth that increase of love. So what do you do then?
well, sometimes
Be
silence.
faithful. You just keep doing it and be there for them later.
Well, if you've approved them, right, and they're not in a space to, I don't think that it is necessarily a good idea to push. Sometimes silence is golden. Sometimes people need a chance to ponder.
And sometimes leaving them alone after you've reproved them can be that increase of love.
Well, right. Don't keep pushing the issue. Right.
Right.
I think that's mainly what you're trying to bring out here, and I would say yes.
Yeah.
If you keep bringing up the issue, it's probably more out of vengeance and anger than love, right?
Right. So I think that, the point is that when we reprove each other, which we are supposed to do quickly when we see the error.
Right, but according to the holy behavior, which is Torah, right?
Right.
Which is Yahweh's, what comes out of Yahweh's own mouth, not our own opinions, right?
That's right. And that is actually an act of love. Because we're not allowed.
And it literally is love, because a lot of times you'll get a lot of hate for it, despite you trying to help them. So the only way that you will want to continue doing it is out of love, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Yeshua is a perfect, and the way he lived his life and the way he preached, even to the people who were his enemies and the people that he reproved, oftentimes, right, and betimes with sharpness, he's a perfect example. He showed us the example of how to do this.
For instance, what did he do with Simon Peter immediately after he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan"?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's go find out. So I'm
Something
gonna
like,
pause.
you got me.
No, I don't remember. Let's go look at the verse. Let's pause for a minute.
So, okay, so when we decided to look up, in reference to what we had been talking about earlier, we decided to look up what Yeshua did after calling Simon Peter Satan. So I am going,
Which
Zach,
that is a very big deal. I'll just put that out there, right?
yeah, we're talking about reproving betimes the sharpness and afterwards showing an increase of love.
Yeah, that was pretty sharp, calling Peter Satan. So
Yeah. So I want to start in verse 21 of Matthew chapter 16, and if I could have Zach read verses 21 and 21 through 23.
Sure. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised again the third day. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying,
So this is where Peter was trying to rebuke Yeshua, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to apply the same principle here.
Yeah.
All right.
But he was going by his own feelings and not by the law.
Correct. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. But he turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men.
So here's just real quick. Here's an example of one of the apostles didn't understand yet that Yeshua had to die, right?
Mhm.
So, but anyways,
Yeah, didn't realize that there were two comings.
correct.
So and in fact, many of them didn't realize that even after he was resurrected.
But it took a while, right? So,
But here
Some of them never got it.
Look at this. This is a blistering rebuke. Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me. For thou savorest not the things of God, but those that be of men.
that's pretty harsh.
That is blistering. But what does he do right afterwards? And if I could have Kelsey read verses 24 through 27.
If you're trying to read Kelsey, you're muted. So let's call on someone else. She might be
Okay, so Josh,
try
can you
Christy.
read? Oh,
Yeah.
Christy. Christy, do you want to read verses 24 through 27?
All right, let's call someone else.
Charles, you want to read verses?
Yes,
You want to read verses 24 through 27 here?
yes, I can read.
Okay.
Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his, I'm not saying this,
His
Cross.
cross.
and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whenever we will lose his life for my sake shall find it.
Now, I just want to point out, for his Yeshua's sake is a key portion to that, but we can continue.
Verses 26 and 27, Charles.
Are you 26?
26 and 27.
Okay. For what is a man preferred
profited.
a prophet, if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul, or what shall a man give in exchange of his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works.
So immediately upon delivering this blistering rebuke to Peter, he gives probably this beautiful doctrine.
He teaches them and uplifts them, right?
He teaches them and uplifts them. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself. Take up
What
his
is a
cross.
man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? He's pleading with them. He's saying, oh my goodness, please get this, please.
Right. And then it's interesting. He also then just gives them a prophecy, right?
Yeah,
Which is a controversial one for those outside the restoration. For those in the restoration, it shouldn't be, anyways, right?
Right.
So I'll just read it because I'm butting in a little bit. But verily I say unto you, there shall be some standing here. I think some would be better translated one, but that's another subject. Which shall not taste of the death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, aka the second coming, aka John the Beloved, right?
Yeah. So what is he? So he teaches and prophesies.
Yep.
After he has thrown Peter, literally face planted Peter into the dirt.
Yeah.
Literally speaking, by his words. I use the word literally for a reason. Not because as literal as by the word. That's what it means, literally.
Right.
So they
No pun?
no pun intended. But after he does that, he uplifts. He strengthens.
Yep.
He teaches them what it means to be his disciple. To deny yourself, take up his cross, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.
Yep. And he also gives the promise, hey, every man is going to be rewarded according to his works.
Right. Now, I do want to point out the word there. He shall reward every man according to his works. Our works don't save us. Our works determine our reward.
Right. We're saved by Yeshua's righteousness, but there are different rewards or glories after that, right? So
right.
For our works, correct.
Right. Or in other words, how well we endure to the end, right?
What?
Anyways.
Oh my goodness. No.
So yeah, that was so I think that's informative of what this means to reprove betimes with sharpness and afterwards show an increase of love.
That's a beautiful example.
So we showed the same teaching from Torah, from the D&C, and from the New Testament.
Yep.
3 witnesses.
Do you think I would think his ways, he doesn't turn to the left or the right from that, but what do I know? But anyways.
Right. And I don't think he prefaced his statement to Simon, but I didn't read anywhere in there where he prefaced his statement to Peter by saying, I know this is going to hurt your feelings.
Nope, he just went
Right. Well, most of the time people say, well, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but that's actually what they're anyway.
Well, see, as soon as somebody says that, I know automatically that they want to hurt my feelings.
Right. Okay. So, but anyways, let's go back to D&C 45. I think we're done with that sidetrack, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
think we're done
yes.
with that sidetrack. Let's move
Okay,
on.
with
so
the
what
scrolls.
verse was that? Do we remember?
We were getting ready to start verse
I
36,
think it was-
I believe.
I,
I think we were at 36.
We finished reading verse 36.
Oh yeah, we finished 36. Yeah.
Charles,
so
you jumped
one
in to say
thing
something?
that I remember we talking about, and I don't see the verse right now, so I can't point out the little part right now, but I'll bring out this little part. There was a part about how everyone fighting with one another. Oh, there it is. We're on 33. They will take up sword one against another.
We had just finished reading 36.
Okay, well, I do want to do this. 'Cause
Okay,
maybe we
no
got
problem.
Altos more sidetracked than I remember. Anyways, I do want to bring this out, that how Yeshua in the New Testament talks about even how father and son will fight each other, right?
Right. It's the
Now,
neighbor.
I think it's
where your
important.
enemies, where a man's enemies shall not be strangers, but shall be of his own house.
Well, I think it's important to know, right? Because we got to look at verse 32. This is happening among the wicked. Right?
Well,
They will take up the sword one against another and they will kill one another. And you
Right.
see this happening today.
Well, so
Literally.
I would add a little more to this, where the wicked will want to fight against the righteous.
Well, and here's
Well, but it's not just the righteous, Stephen, though. That's what I'm telling you.
Right. They want to fight
They're
against the
taking up sword
wicked and,
against each other.
right, each other and the righteous. So I meant to say and. Sorry about that.
but
Right.
at the same time, this is also a reference to a coming time of anarchy.
Which is not a good thing. As in, was it
We're
last week? We talked
Not
about
in
the
a- we are
example
not
of
in anarchy.
the guy in the sticks, and that goes against anarchy principles, right? As
Okay,
in,
all you
because
have
he
to
didn't do
do-
anything to hurt anybody.
all you have to do is look at the governments of the world and how they operate against each other, right? And how you see tyrannical leaders rise and fall at the whim of whoever, right?
Somebody
to
in the
know
shadows.
that this is happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're
It's
talking,
going to get fuller though. It's
but I'm
starting.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what the kind of anarchy that is prophesied is where a man's enemies shall be from his own house.
Right. So it's not to that point yet, but it's getting there. So I do think Josh is bringing out how it's starting, right?
Oh
But-
yeah. We
hasn't
can
quite-
see it. We can see it. We can see the seeds of it around us.
Right.
Right.
We can
Right.
see the seeds of it.
Okay.
It's
so
not just seeds. We've got little sproutlets already.
Well,
yes.
yeah. I'll
It's
give you
not
that.
just the seeds.
Yeah.
It's not just the seeds.
Sure.
Seeds were
Okay.
planted a while ago.
Yeah. It's happening, and that also goes along with Matthew 24. How people will, their hearts will grow cold because they will forget or ignore Torah. Right.
Right.
Correct.
This is why all of this is happening, is because they have rejected the light.
Right.
So,
Right.
and so
Which
that
we
means
brought
that-
out here that they reject the light, right? Which is Torah,
Right.
which we also looked at, right?
Right, and so which leads us back to where we were in verse 36, is when the light shall begin to break.
Yes.
Forward. So that's where people are going to start teaching Torah, right? Or at least more en masse than before, right?
Right.
Right. Or they will begin to search for it more
Right.
urgently.
Sure. So something along those lines, right?
So now we get into what the actual parable is, in verse 37.
You want to read that one, Ben?
Sure. You look and behold the fig trees, and ye see them with your eyes. Ye say, when they begin to shoot forth, that their leaves are yet tender, summer is now nigh at hand.
Right.
And-
So this deals with about seeing the signs to know what season it is, right?
But
Right,
the,
right.
the other, it also says us a key thing about signs. The sign occurs, then the event.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Correct.
the sign, then there's the event.
Correct.
Sign and the event. Always,
Right.
always in that
Right.
instance. In that
Right.
case. Even so it shall be in that day when they shall see all these things, then shall they know that the hour is nigh. So all these
Not
things,
just some, but all, right?
right. Then you'll know that then you'll know that the time of the Gentiles, the end of the time of the Gentiles is nigh at hand. Oh, wait a
Right,
minute.
and that's not yet
No.
to say. There's a
No,
lot
no.
of false prophecy or false prophecy interpretation saying it's
Right.
sooner than it is. Okay.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
there's some false prophecy interpretation out there that's saying it's already happened.
oh yeah, apparently, did you know that we're already in the
Only, yeah, I don't know how anybody can believe that one, but yes, there is stuff out there like
Yeah,
that.
Wait,
we're already
about
in the
what now?
we're already in the tribulation because we're getting lambasted on Facebook.
Oh, someone's feelings was hurt. I'm sorry.
I was just reproving times with sharpness. No, anyway.
Showing forth afterwards an increase of hate towards the
Oh,
person we reprove.
Wait a minute. You're not talking about how what people do. We should be talking about what should happen. It should be love. We just went over that, Ben.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
short memory.
Man. And you were the one who was preaching. No, I'm just,
I'm just, yeah. Well,
I'm just
I
messing.
sometimes just like to make a joke. It's
Oh, I know it's a joke. I'm heckling you.
we laugh.
yep.
We laugh.
And
We
so
laugh.
it's that's the thing that
I
okay.
want to go back to verse 37 because I
Okay.
just saw a parallel.
Yeah.
When Ben mentioned sign, then event, right? You always have a precursor and then the mighty and great one, right?
You mean like mighty and
You're
strong
Elijah
one?
and then you're Elisha.
Yeah,
Right.
there's the
It's always that
Elijah
way.
and then
It
the
always
Elisha.
happens that way.
Right.
And it always happens that way. It's just a little parallel that I saw.
Yeah, so you have
from
Joseph
that.
Smith and then the mighty and strong one.
Right.
Right.
'Cause Joseph Smith is the Elijah of our time, and the
Right.
mighty and strong one is the Elisha.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the terms that I think Ben came up, which I'm going to start using, is the messenger is Joseph Smith, and the
Yep.
preparer is the mighty and strong one that's coming. Right.
Right. It's just a parallel that popped into my head when Ben was talking about sign and then event. Sign and then event. There's a parallel there that I saw.
Sure.
So
Right. Because one comes the sign, right? The
Mhm.
Elijah happens before the Elisha, right?
Right.
Messenger before the preparer, and the preparer.
And just on those lines, the messenger needs to come before the preparer because the preparer, in all cases, learns from the messenger.
Right. The other thing about the preparer is that he prepares a people for whom the Redeemer can redeem the promise of the Lord to them.
Right.
Yes.
Just like John the Baptist was the preparer, mighty and strong one, the Elisha of his day.
Yeshua.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see.
Well, either way, it's the same thing, just different way of saying it. That's fine.
Yeah. Same parallel.
Just
Same
like
parallel.
Elisha prepared a people with faith enough to, in the time of Isaiah, receive the deliverance from the king of Assyria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. True enough. Interesting. Very interesting. It's just an interesting parallel that popped into my head. Well,
No, it's a good one. In fact, if we have time to keep going, because we never go on squirrels, it kind of gets into what's coming up. So, but that's fine. So that's a good one.
So let's keep going.
So I think we're on 38,
38.
now, right?
38 now, yeah.
Zach, you want to read 38? No, so just one thing. I just noticed one thing. Let me say something. So Pentecost, that's about Torah being restored, right?
Right.
That's what the mighty and strong one does. He brings the full Torah, which goes along, gives a lot more credence to your statement, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, and then summer is now at hand. Summer's Pentecost.
Yes.
A restoration of
Oh my
Torah.
gosh. Yeah, now that you, wow. That's, it
Thank
all
you.
comes
That made
together.
that part all connect together. That was good. Right?
That was outstanding, is what that was. Yeah.
Right.
This is fun, guys.
Okay, so sorry, Zach. I just had to throw that in there while I was in my head. So
That's good.
let's pause for a second. Okay, sorry about the little break. So Zach, will you read 38?
Yep. Even so, it shall be in that day when they shall see all these things, then shall they know that the hour is nigh.
There's that word again. No.
No, right. Because they're watching the prophecies and watching for their fulfillments.
Does that mean that it's not always bad to seek a sign?
No. So this is a little. Let's clarify this a little bit.
There's a difference between seeking
And watching.
and
Right.
watching.
Right. Seeking is more. At least I don't believe this is what you meant, Ben.
Right.
But this is just clarification of the phrases in the scriptures. Seeking after a sign is where you're going to Yeshua or prophets to say, "Give me this sign to prove who you claim to be." Okay.
Right.
We're
It's basically taking the
watching,
Lord's name in vain. Right.
right? Because we're actually commanded to watch for the signs, which is
Yes.
different than a sign seeker. A
Right.
watcher
But
studies the scriptures and then tries to see when those signs that are already been given are happening.
So I actually used the word that I used on purpose.
Oh,
And
okay.
that
Go
was
ahead.
because, and that's not because that's because that's what some people will say.
Well,
Like,
yes.
sure,
Right,
that you'll know because you're watching the signs. That somebody might say, some people will say, oh, so it's not always bad to seek signs.
Right. There's misunderstanding between in general with people of the difference between a sign seeker and a sign watcher. Right?
Exactly. And so I was actually eliciting that clarification.
No, that's good. That's good. Because there's it's good to bring up there's the difference between those two, right?
Right.
So, right. So let's do 39. Josh, you want to do 39?
Sure. And it shall come to pass that he that feareth me shall be looking forth for the great day of the Lord to come, even for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man.
So that is a specific. Sorry, go ahead.
The sign of the coming of the Son of Man is a specific sign in the heavens, as the polar configuration is restored.
Correct. So here, let's just Ben, you want to read this quote since you're starting to try to allude to it, and this is in the New Testament also, but then here's Joseph Smith talking about in the history of the church.
Yep. Okay. And then will appear one grand sign of the Son of Man in heaven. But what will the world do? They'll say it is a planet, a comet. And there's actually more to that quote, but yeah.
Right. That's the ellipsis. It's hard to put everything, but if you know some more off top of the head,
I don't know everything about. I don't know the words per se. But yeah, there's more to that quote afterwards, which is actually.
Is this a OneNote, Stephen?
Yeah, this isn't OneNote.
You can make corrections.
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah, change would to world. But what will the would?
Oh, someone must have typed it wrong because this is a copy. But yes,
I mean, in my mind,
that is supposed to be world.
In my
Yeah,
mind, the psychological principle took over and I automatically transposed wood for world, but
Oh yeah. That's what it's supposed to be. All right. So
Right.
yeah, it's but they will say it is a planet, a comet, etc. And it gets even more specific after this about the polar configuration, more specifically about polar configuration after that.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna have to go look at some further on that quote then. But it's interesting here. This goes along with the polar configuration and Revelations, which I mean, Revelations, there's lots of it that goes along with the polar configuration, but there's going to be a planet that's coming back that's sometimes called a star, but star and planet are universal in the old days.
Right.
And same with comet, right?
Yep.
And then
So
sometimes in Book of
signs in the
Revelation,
heavens. They were all signs in the heavens. Yes.
right. And sometimes in the Book of Revelations, it's referred to as a mountain.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Anyways, when you go so the Book of Revelations, parts of it will talk about the same event in using different imagery.
Well,
Okay. Yeah, that makes
thing
sense.
is understanding the idea of the polar configuration of the fact that the polar configuration has been modified and will be restored along with everything else. It does a lot to help one understand the Book of Revelation.
Yes, it actually does. It's not the only key portion to help you understand the Book of Revelations. It's one of the keys.
Yeah, that's why I said it does a lot. It does.
All right.
It's not that it solves the whole thing entirely, but
All right. I'm just clarifying and saying it another way, right?
Right. Yeah, 18. All right.
Okay, so I'll read 40. And they shall see signs and wonders. Okay. In the heavens above and the earth beneath. So
Both. Above
yes,
and
in fact,
below.
I'll just say this. I need to finish a post. I never say that. But in this post, what was it post? I get into the actual science, how the polar configuration will cause the signs on Earth that is prophesied.
Oh wow.
As in the signs before the second coming and even during the millennium also.
Oh wow.
And so I need to finish it, but I'm trying to finish a couple things first. I never get sidetracked on squirrels though, but
the polar alignment, the polar alignment of as the planets realign in the polar manner, it will also cause a massive it'll shift the magnetic pole of the Earth.
yeah,
Yes,
it will also cause
then we
earthquakes.
shall behold,
Well,
then we shall
that's
behold
one of the
blood
things
and
that happen.
fire, vapors of
that's-
smoke.
That's one of the things that happens when the magnetic pole of the Earth shifts.
Right. There's a lot that goes with it. So be 40, and they shall see signs of. Oh, I think I just read that, right?
Yeah. 41. But then when you have that, right, then that's when you shall behold blood and fire and vapors of smoke. That is a result of those things.
Right. So
Right, first the sign,
right.
then the event. Yet again, sign, event, sign, event.
Right. And so some of these do get a little mixed up here. Because blood can have a lot of things, and we'll look at that in verse 42 in just a second. But fire, that could be like fire and brimstone, okay?
Yep.
And that will happen with the things that the polar configuration returning will bring along with it, okay?
But I'm telling you what this is actually referring to. Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
At least the fire and vapors of smoke.
Right.
Referring to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, it's the same type of event happening.
Right.
And this is also somewhat bringing out what's going to cause it, right? as I forget where, but we even talked about the Lord of Hosts recently, connection to some of this stuff, right?
Yep.
As in the hosts of heaven.
Yeah,
I-
when we're talking
I'll
about
just
it,
tell you, people aren't living up there. It's planets that are in the hosts of heaven. It's not
Yeah.
people. Okay. And so, despite what some people might tell you, it's not people up there. It's planets and comets and stars. So,
Countless.
and before the day of the Lord shall come.
The sun shall be darkened.
so I will tell you, I do currently believe this is a solar eclipse. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone some back and forth on some things. In fact, it's this section here, and the timing that it does tells me this is a solar eclipse, and I've checked it. It goes with the timing, I believe, because you can go check solar eclipses. Because before I thought this was something else.
Yeah.
But because of D&C 45 and the timing, how they're putting things in a particular order,
Right.
this is a solar eclipse.
Mm-hmm. And the
Right.
moon, and followed by a lunar eclipse. The moon
Right,
returned to
which
blood.
the reason why Ben is saying it's a lunar eclipse, when you have a lunar eclipse, the moon turns red like blood.
So it'll
They
be a
call it-
full.
They call it literally a blood moon.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
the stars fall from heaven.
So
Hosts fall from
so
heaven.
on the spiritual level, I know how all these three will be fulfilled. People will try to stop the people of celestial glory from talking, right? And we see that in prophecy. Same with the telestial. So one thing that's not well known is when the moon is blood or looks like blood, red, it's putting forth less light.
Right.
So the world is going to try to get even the terrestrial group of people to say less, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're more likely to comply to that than the celestial people. Okay, just the nature.
And the
And
stars, literally, and the stars, the telestial fall.
yeah, the telestial people will just fall. They'll just start following the sons of perditions, and they'll become sons of perditions. Okay. Now, so on the spiritual level, I know how all three of these are going to be fulfilled. On the physical level, I know how the sun and the moon will be fulfilled. I have theories about the star ones, which goes along with the the polar configuration coming back, but that's a little later. So I'm a little confused myself here on the physical one for the stars.
On the literal physical fulfillment. Right.
Yeah,
It could just be a meteor storm.
Oh, that could be. That would make some sense for the physical timing.
I mean, it just goes back to my common assumption, which is that the simplest explanation is probably the closest to the truest.
No, that makes some sense because this is not giving me this fire and brimstone, which happens later, right?
Right.
So, and because when the polar configuration starts coming back, it will, it's been kind of started alluding to, it's going to change the magnetic core or magnetic pole. I think it's the right way of saying it, which is then going to shift the Earth, and it's going to make the stars look like it's falling, right? But the timing for that is wrong right here. So I do think Ben's bringing out the shooting stars is probably a good physical fulfillment of that.
Right.
I haven't figured that one out, but I think Ben brings out a good. I think what Ben's saying is actually would make the most sense, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Here's one where I think,
Okay.
and here's one where I think sometimes where it's kind of debatable. Verse 43, it's kind of debatable what this place is.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous.
yeah,
And then the remnant shall be
because
gathered onto this place.
Yeah.
What is
So
this place?
now I always took it that it's the place that the revelation's being received, but and that was in Kirtland, but or the Zion area, but under the and that is true. That would be true for the remnant that is to be gathered to that land of inheritance. But there is also a remnant gathered to Jerusalem. And there is also the two people and the two candlesticks are in Jerusalem.
Right. I think there's going to be two gathering places: Zion, Independence, Missouri, and surrounding areas, and Jerusalem. But with this, it says this place and not these places. I would wonder if this is relating to Jerusalem specifically. But this is where I'm still figuring some things out myself. Okay.
Well,
Yeah, like I
that's
said,
what I was. That's what I was getting. Is it is a little ambiguous.
Right.
And that could be. That could be. Now you can make some educated guesses as to where this place is, but it does. It does state specifically this place, which leads me to believe that it is a specific location.
Well, and that's why for me, I've always assumed that it was the place that the revelation was received. This place.
Right. It's
I've always assumed that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
right. It's a little ambiguous, but if Ohio is part of Zion, it could go with the kind of the extended Independence, Missouri, right? But anyways, that part's a little tricky. Let's see, Zach, you want to read 44?
Yeah, I mean, it does say that Independence is the center place,
Right.
not the whole thing.
Right.
And then they shall look for me, and behold, I will come, and they shall see me in the clouds of heaven, clouded with power and great glory, with all the holy angels, and he that watches not for me shall be cut off.
So there's a couple things that goes with clouds. One thing that goes with clouds is judgment. Okay.
Yep.
So Yeshua is going to be in judgment is one thing it's here. And then also, I'm going to read 45, okay? Because it also adds to this, okay? And this is where there is a nugget of truth of the rapture, but there's a lot of mistruth or false or twists with that also. But here, let's go. Let me just read it and we'll talk about it. But the arm of Yahweh shall fall, and we'll talk about that phrase
But
before Yeah, but before the arm of Yahweh shall fall, sorry. So before that happens, whatever that is, and we'll talk about that in a minute, a messenger, which I'm going to call her, okay? And actually, I get that name from Ben, which makes sense. But this is, other times I've called the second helper to the mighty and strong one, okay?
Okay, all right, okay.
Moses
And he's going to do something really big, whoever that person is. He shall sound his trump, meaning he's going to do his job, and the saints that have slept, that died, including the mighty and strong one and his helper, which I'm putting as Aaron here, okay, shall come forth and meet Yahweh in the cloud. So here's what people say is going to kind of the core part of the rapture. Those who've died are going to be resurrected, including the mighty and strong one and Aaron, are going to go up into the clouds.
To meet Yahweh.
Well, to go up into the clouds. He's up in heaven. The clouds are up in heaven. So this is where.
But it says they shall come forth to meet me in the cloud.
Right.
Right.
There's some interesting imagery here. So, I do find it interesting that before the arm of Yahweh happens, which is not a good thing. We'll get to that in a little bit. There's going to be a resurrection event.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we see cloud here, which has something to do with judgment. So I don't know.
Right. So one thing I'm going to add here, though, if you go through the scriptures, we'll take 3 events that I know off the top of my head, and there's probably others, but here's some 3 big events: the Exodus with Moses,
right?
The Passover and unleavened bread, specifically unleavened bread with Lot.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And then the Passover unleavened bread in the Book of Mormon in 3 Nephi 8. That is when the wicked are destroyed. There is a special day during unleavened bread that's called first fruits, when Yeshua was resurrected. These people, and I think Ben will agree with me, these people are rising from the dead on first fruits. Because these are Yahweh's first fruits.
Christ's, the first fruits of them that slept.
Right.
According to Paul.
Which will include the mighty and strong one and Aaron, because if this gets into some specifics, they will get killed on I believe, and I think Ben will agree with me here, the evening of the 13th of the first moon.
Yep.
Because they will be dead for 3.5 days.
Oh.
And if they resurrect on first fruits, it has to be after sunset on the 13th when they die.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that makes sense.
And they shall come and meet Yahweh up in heaven. Okay. It says cloud.
Heaven, or is the cloud judgment?
The facts of the matter are the first resurrection is a judgment. Being a part of the first resurrection is your judgment.
Right.
Right. But it doesn't. Okay, but that's what I'm getting at, is that it says in the cloud.
Right. Cloud means judgment. So this is where it can be tricky to read some of this stuff.
Right.
Because cloud means judgment, and being judged to be part of the first resurrection.
While I've been studying judgment, cloud is something that is associated almost like all the time with judgment.
Right.
But I don't think you're hearing what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is, it's simply being a part of the first resurrection. You've already been judged.
That means you have this celestial glory. You've been judged and found worthy. And thus you're with him and his
your
way.
Resurrection is your judgment. Therefore, you are raised to meet him in the cloud.
Right.
In your judgments, you're raised to be like him.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I think
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But just having been, I understand what you're saying. Right. But just from reading, from what I've learned, cloud equals judgment.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So to some degree, you understand what we're getting at, right?
Yes, I do understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
It doesn't literally, I mean, I understand, and it's not that big of a stretch, right?
Right.
All right. So the question is this literal or figurative, right?
Correct. And that's my thing.
Yeah.
Because of other prophecies and my other understandings, I do believe this is figurative, personally. So,
okay.
But I'm still learning, and I will admit that. Okay.
Yeah, I believe. Well, yeah, and And clearly by my explanation of it, I believe it to be figurative.
Yeah,
So-
yes, I'm with Ben on this one. But the main thing I'm trying to bring out here, this second helper, that's quite an event that he just caused to do, right?
Right.
Now, Ben and I are using the name her here because, as we've talked about previously at other recordings, I don't remember which one, I'll have to look it up, but her was the one with Aaron that raised Moses up that I bring up, that's connected to the second helper bringing Moses, or that mighty and strong one, and his helper Aaron back from the dead.
Right. I got you.
Because he
Okay.
raised Moses up, his arms.
Right.
But and
Yeah, he did.
that arm, that strength, which in a little bit we'll go talk about the arm of Yahweh, which connects to that. But we're
Oh, it's coming up very soon. Yes.
yeah, it's coming up soon. Let's
The
see,
verse
Ben, you want to
after
read
this one.
46?
Yeah, sure. I'll read 46. Wherefore, if ye have slept in peace, blessed are you. For as you now behold me, and know that I am, even so shall ye come unto me, and your souls shall live, and your redemption shall be perfected, and the saints shall come forth from the four quarters of the earth.
Oh,
So-
that's awesome.
So if you read this, peace, rest, you've kept Yahweh's ways.
Blessed.
You
Yep.
enter into the rest of your Lord.
Redeemed.
You enter into the
Redeemed.
rest of your Lord,
Right.
along with
Gathered.
all the other
Perfected.
saints. By the way, saints aren't members of a church.
They're not?
And they're not dead. You don't become a saint long after you're dead. You become a saint while you're living Yahweh's Torah.
Which now makes
Them
this
being dead is a false Catholic tradition that you vote on them, right?
Right.
It's
Which
in the
that-
scriptures, even
Right.
in the New Testament, the
you gotta
saints are the
understand,
living.
it's a Catholic tradition that you have to be voted as a saint by a majority of the cardinals.
and but your miracles could have been card tricks. But anyway,
Right. That's a whole other.
But
Their
anyway,
voting's not actually accurate, but anyway.
Careful with that one.
as I was going to
Could've
as
been
I was going to
hero
say,
card
as
tricks,
I was,
yeah. Anyway.
I say something? Yeah, and the saints shall come forth from the four quarters of the. This here now correlates back to 2 Thessalonians, where it says, first the dead that are alive in Christ, and then we with them.
Mhm.
Correct.
So that ties us back into 2 Thessalonians, right there.
Yeah, that's
Right,
that's
right.
That's what I wanted to point out.
that's the quick and the dead.
Right. So this, I should probably get rid of some of these spaces here, but this event with her is going to cause people from the dead to come up, and then also those who are living, as Ben's bringing out, right?
Well, because they've been watching the signs and they know.
Right,
Now
right.
it's time.
And
it's
they
time.
have endured. They don't just know,
Yes.
but they've endured, right?
Mhm.
Which means they actually really know. But also, one
It's
thing
no
I want
longer
to bring
faith,
out.
it's knowledge. Yes, right.
Right. So one thing I want to bring out here is this little phrase: "For as you now behold me, as now
And-
I that
I know that I am."
am.
they
yeah.
these people that were raised knew that Yeshua is the promised Messiah."
Right.
As in, because I am like him, as I'm keeping Torah as he kept Torah, which goes back to was it in one of the Peter epistles, that we should, if we're believers, we should live as Yeshua lived, right? Which means
Mhm.
Yeshua
Well, wait,
kept Torah, so we should keep Torah.
which Yeshua actually stated many times, right? If you love me, keep my commandments.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I'm using that one from Peter because it was written after Yeshua's death and resurrection, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, no, yeah. Okay.
Good point.
But your is valid also, and I completely agree that I just used that one to combat the idea it changed after his death and resurrection. So, but anyway.
Okay, I got you. No, that's why I said okay, because I got what you were getting at. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just combating more issues. But anyways,
Yeah,
That
which may
could
come up.
arise,
Right.
or that shall
Anyway.
arise.
yeah.
But after this event, now
So
we get
after what's happening on what I would say, and so would Ben, and he can correct me if I'm wrong,
first fruits.
first fruits. So after first fruits,
And hiya!
right, because along with this, the Lazarus event kind of leads into this, because when you look at inclusive time, Lazarus was raised on the 4th day.
Yeah.
You look at
Yep.
inclusive time, that's 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Yeah.
event that's happening with the mighty and strong one and his first helper, or Aaron, for a code name or lack of something better to say, right? They're going to be a Lazarus event. They are going to be raised back to life as if they never died.
Right.
Because that's what's in Revelations 11.
Right.
Correct.
And among other duties that they have in prophecies, that is duties for mortal men, not immortal men. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
Okay.
after this Lazarus event, then shall the arm of the Lord fall upon the nations.
So now you can see here, I'm calling the arm of Yahweh the mighty and strong one. That is when after first fruits is when the mighty and strong one will cause Mars to come upon the earth to bring the fire and brimstone. Now I say Mars, I have believed Mars before, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you, it's verse 48 that really cemented it for me. And then shall Yahweh set his foot upon this mount. So if those familiar with the polar configuration will know Yahweh's foot is Mars.
Yep.
And the mighty strong one calling forth Mars through the power of Yahweh, right? Because he was a sinner in the past, but he's not now. But because he sinned, he has to rely upon the power of Yahweh. Okay.
Right.
He calls forth Mars, which brings the fire and brimstone, just as in Sodom and Gomorrah. There are literal fire and brimstones at Sodom and Gomorrah still. And when planets move around, they bring other little fire and brimstones with them. And what's going to happen? That's going to get in the atmosphere of the earth, and that's going to kill the wicked who are still here on earth.
Yeah.
Because the righteous are up. They're off of earth right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? They're off of earth because
But I think that the thing that we need to combat is, I think in terms of the rapture, the thing that needs to be combated is this idea that what we want is to be necessarily in heaven, because the meek shall inherit the earth. That's what it said. That's the promise of the Lord. The meek shall inherit the earth.
right. And the meek are those that have been judged and found worthy.
The meek are those who have been judged and have been found resting.
So, in other words, they're
Again,
the ones that are keeping Torah.
going back to that verse, ye have slept in peace, who have found resting in Torah.
Right. So, to put it really bluntly, as Ben kind of did, it's those who are keeping Torah. It's those who are going to receive the celestial glory, which D&C 76 brings out. They shall receive everything that the Father has, including the earth.
They shall inherit the earth.
Right.
And so the
terrestrial and telestial will be on earth, but it'll be the celestial that own it. for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Now,
so go ahead.
so is it all? So it says, before the arm of the Lord shall fall, an angel shall sound his trump, and the saints that have slept shall come forth to meet me, Yahweh, in the cloud. Wherefore, if ye have slept in peace, blessed are you, as you now behold me and know that I am even so. So is he talking about, because it also says the saints shall come forth from the four quarters of the earth.
So the
are
saints are the living
coming from the four quarters of the earth? Are they going to be caught up into the cloud too?
Yeah, they're going to go up.
And so is it only
They're gonna-
going to be the wicked that are left on the earth?
Correct, because those are the ones that are going to be destroyed with the fire and brimstone that's going to
I guess
follow
those are
the
the ones
coming
that
of
aren't
Mars.
looking. I guess those are the ones that aren't looking
Right.
or watching, whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And
Mhm.
they're not keeping
Okay.
Yahweh's commandments, right? In some form or manner.
Well, that's kind of a prerequisite for the watching, right? If you're watching, then you should already know.
We're right. I do think they go together, but I'm just being explicit.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right.
So,
Then shall the arm of then shall the Lord set his foot upon this mount.
so this is when the mighty strong one will call forth Mars to do its damage. And Mars is known as the warring, destroying planet, even in myth.
When it says, and it shall cleave in twain, is he talking about Mars literally splitting in half?
No,
it's actually
earthquake.
It's actually talking about the Mount of Olives.
Yeah, there's going to be an
Oh.
earthquake. And when planets
Oh,
come
they shall
together,
set his foot upon this mount. Okay, never mind. I get it. I got it. Okay.
yeah,
Because he's
and
talking this mount, he's talking about that specific location. Okay. all
Right,
Okay,
and-
that actually now has me along with going along with Stephen on what this place is, because I'm believing it to be Jerusalem.
yeah, but like I said, it's there is some ambiguity here, but I do think context in the earlier verse it is Jerusalem, but it's tricky, right? Like you've helped me with other tricky places, so
Yeah.
no worries. But then earthquake, right? Cleave in twain. It will tremble. Oh, look, earthquake. And reel to and fro, earthquake. And
Yep,
the heaven
and the
shall
heaven shall
also shake. And so, because it's moving. And so, the heavens, we'll say the stars, they're moving because the earth is moving because of this event of the
Right,
Mars
right.
coming back. It's going to cause earth to move. So, it's going to look like the heavens are quaking, right?
Right.
Actually,
right.
heaven's not actually moving. It just looks like it is because the earth is moving and the stars are going back.
From
up.
man's perspective,
Yes.
it
Yeah,
will look like
good point. That was a good way of saying what I was trying to say. So,
Yeah.
but that explains.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
so, and then Yahweh shall utter his voice. So this goes along with 3rd Nephi
Yep.
9
the
and
terrible
10,
calamity.
if I remember correctly. 8, 9, and 10, right? And then 11, but that's
8, 9,
later. 11's later.
Right.
But the event that goes with this would be 8, 9, and 10. They heard Yahweh's voice, right? After the destruction. Same thing's going to happen here.
And then
So utter
they
his
that laugh
voice.
shall see their folly.
Yeah. You want to just read the whole verse since just kind of read some of it?
Sure. Sure. And the Lord shall utter his voice, and all the ends of the earth shall hear it. I like that. It's like no one will be able to deny that they
Right.
hear this voice. When the nations of the earth shall mourn, because they're going to realize that they were weighed and found wanting,
That it's
and that they have laughed. And they that have laughed shall see their folly.
and that it's too late. It's too late to change anything.
Now, I will say
You've
not
been-
everybody that was left on earth is going to die. The
Right.
majority are.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and here you go. Here's your stoning.
yeah. Okay. You want to read it?
And calamity shall cover the mocker, and the scorner shall be consumed.
Cover? You mean they're going to get maybe a stone's going to go on top of them?
Like maybe,
mountain, whatever.
like maybe the one from the Life of Brian for the person who, for the priest who kept talking about
God.
Jehovah.
Oh, stop. Maybe. No.
Well, so cover. This could also go with the event of Korah in where they were trying to tell Moses, who was the mighty and strong one of his day, that he was trying to take on too much authority.
But this is a direct description of what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep. The scorner shall be consumed.
Covered in fire and
And
brimstone, covered and consumed, covered it,
Yep.
consumed
They
in
that have
fire, and
watched for
covered in
iniquity shall be hewn
brimstone.
down and cast into the fire, just like you're saying right now.
All right. Well, I'm just bringing up another one that it could be the earth, because there's going to be earthquakes. And with Korah in Torah with Moses, they mocked Moses basically, okay? And they got covered by earth from an earthquake.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying there's two applications going on here, because it is worded very vaguely, which
I would like to point out that was an extremely localized earthquake.
yes, it was, but the one at the second coming is not going to be localized.
No.
So,
It's going to be calamitous.
Yeah.
it's going to be the whole earth, right? So,
Right. Which is
anyways.
something that
But yeah.
nobody on earth has ever experienced.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
but it's going to happen because of their iniquity, right? And they'll hew down into the fire. So
Yeah,
into
but-
the
but
fire
here's
talks
the-
about how
and they're-
there's fire
and they're
in
gonna
the
realize-
center.
and they're going to realize they deserve it.
Oh yeah, they know they deserve it, but it kind of brings out how there's going to be fire in the center of the earth, right?
Yep.
As in hell,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or
Oh
Gehenna.
yeah.
So I'm going to throw something else out here that I've said before, but I'm saying it again. If you're a son of perdition, you're going to be stoned forever in the center of the earth.
Well, that actually falls in line with the Hebrew name for hell, which is Gehinnom,
Yeah.
or basically fire at the
Eternal
fire in the bowels of the earth, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
AKA eternal stoning.
Yes. And it'll be stoned by a pretty big stone, the earth. So,
Right.
Because you're going to be covered in the
Yeah,
center.
yeah. Your hands and your feet won't be poking out from under it.
No. You're there forever.
Will be buried.
All right. So,
Moving on.
moving on. I mean, that was kind of fun to talk a little bit, but it's also literal, right? But it is kind of interesting. Right. And I will say, it's actually, if you don't believe the scriptures, it's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe the scriptures, and I do believe how this makes everything fit. So Zach, you want to read these three? And there's probably a good chance someone's going to interrupt you, but we're all kind of used to that. So go ahead.
51.
Yeah, 51, 52, 53.
And then shall the Jews look upon me and say, what are these wounds in thy hands and in thy feet? Then shall they know that I am the Lord. For I will say unto them, these wounds are the wounds with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. I am he who was lifted up. I am Yeshua, who was crucified. I am the son of Elohim. Then shall they weep because of their iniquities. Then shall they lament because they persecuted their king.
So after
Brother Stephen,
destruction. Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Brother Stephen,
Yeah.
Make them a little big.
Yeah, I can make it a little bigger. Let's try 140. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
so what I see here is the fact. What I see here is an open refutation of replacement theology. He's not done with them yet.
No. He never was. As we mentioned earlier, one of the reasons it went to the Gentiles is to get the Jews jealous, so that they'll start keeping the law the way they're supposed to be, not the way that they are. Right.
Right.
So in 54, I'll read this
And
one.
that's why they're going to be weeping and lamenting, is because they're going to come to that realization at that time.
Right. Hence, as you're bringing out, because of their iniquities. They'll be sad because of their iniquities.
And that
And
they
shall
tormented and
lament.
persecuted the king.
Now, I would say, not that I'm a word expert. You guys are better at that than I am, but I would say lamentate is worse than weep.
To lament.
Oh, no, it's true, heart-rending, life-changing sorrow.
A
Right.
lament. In music,
It's
a lament is a song expressing profoundest grief.
Right.
Yes.
Which is way worse than weeping, right?
Yeah.
Well, anything can make you cry. Shoot, you can cry when you're happy.
Shoot, all it takes is slice open an onion. I'm crying.
Well, we all know that's not quite what that's going on there, but
No, that's like the truest form of grief, because they will realize the enormity of what happened
right. Now,
and how bad it was.
so I will say the house of my friends is referring to the friends that the house that came from is the apostles. The house that the apostles, or the tribe group of people that the apostles came from, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna make a note here, apostles, right?
yeah. His friends were the apostles, and the house.
And you can
He
see, I
called
don't
them
know.
his friends, and he called them his friends.
Yeah.
House. I would also put a further glyph: house, nation,
People. I'll put people.
people. Yeah.
But yeah, house could be nations or people. I'm gonna put people here. Because Daniel called the Jews his people, right?
Right.
As in going to Daniel 9, but anyways. So, and then 54, assuming we're done with 51 through 53 now, right?
Yeah.
Let me read 54. And then shall the heathen nations be redeemed. And they're redeemed because they start believing in Yahweh and come under his covering and keep his ways, right?
And so what we see is that redemption cometh in and through the merits of the Holy One of Israel.
Right. Because this all is happening because of Yeshua's merits. But, and then they that knew no law or no Torah, and knew is an intimate word in scriptures. They that did not keep Torah shall have a part in the first resurrection. Now, let me explain this. Because they have not physically died yet, they can repent.
Yeah.
And thus,
and it shall be tolerable for them.
Right. And so they will be part of the first resurrection when they died, because here it's going on. This first part, they have been redeemed, aka they have repented and started keeping Torah and then endured to the end. Right.
Yep.
And it, what is it? I would say the law, right?
Mhm.
For they knew no law shall have part in the first resurrection, and it is Torah. I don't see what else it could go to other than maybe first resurrection, but
Or
that's
their
not something
or
that
their
you tolerate, right?
yeah, or their
Mhm.
condition, or their condition upon resurrection, but still,
Right.
I-
But
I-
they'll start liking it because now they like it for them, right?
right,
Shall be
yeah,
Because-
for them.
Makes
Right,
sense.
right. Yep. Mhm.
Because
I
missionary
that.
work, and I will add because of other things here, which will include the mighty and strong one in Aaron,
Mhm.
as
Right,
in
right.
other prophecies that go along with this event, among other people, right? Because there's the apostles and
Well,
the
obviously,
70.
it's not just
But,
going to be
well, when
mighty
one
and strong one and Aaron, right?
when one considers that one of the primary duty, that one of the early duties of the mighty and strong one will be to find the other servants.
Right.
There will be others.
Yeah, there will be others.
Mhm. I like 55. 55 is
Okay.
a great verse.
Oh, well,
And
since you
Satan,
bring it up, you read it.
Satan shall be bound, that he shall have no place in the hearts of the children of men.
That'll be nice. As in, I'll say another way, the sons of perditions. There will be no sons of perditions during this time.
Yep.
Because the sons of perditions are Satan's followers and leaders, but since he has no place in the hearts of men, he's not leading
Right.
them, right? So
Well, it seems like then that opposition is not a prerequisite for existence,
no,
because
no,
it doesn't look like it doesn't look like that is it doesn't look like there's going to be much opposition in the will there be
well,
people who choose not to obey?
yes, there will.
On that level there will be some opposition.
To some degree,
Right.
but not to the extreme that Satan causes, right?
Right.
Because we know
Right.
in the Tanakh, Old Testament, there's prophecy how during this period, people will not keep tabernacles and they won't get rain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is contingent, or that goes along with people in the category of telestial glory. Because telestial, although they believe Yeshua is the Messiah, they still don't keep the law.
Right.
But they'll still get punished.
Right.
And so here is one example, among others, that there will be telestial people on earth during the millennium.
So that for the people who say that anybody who's not terrestrial will not be there.
Correct. That's not the case. And that goes against prophecy in the Tanakh, right?
Yep.
Right.
But they won't be sons of perditions until the very end. That's what this is saying. Sons of perditions.
Yep.
Until the very end where the final war will happen, right? But anyways.
And then it will be done. Right. Yeah.
So
58. Oh, I
Ben,
like
you want to
this.
read
Yeah.
for a little bit?
Oh, sure. And at that day, when I shall come in my glory, shall the parable be fulfilled which I spake concerning the 10 virgins.
Now, this is interesting. I have stated before that the 10 virgins deals with the second coming. Here's it stating right there, right?
Yep.
For they
Yep.
that are wise have received the truth and taken the Holy Spirit for their guide and have not been deceived. Verily I say unto you, they shall not be hewn down and cast into the fire, but shall abide the day.
Mm.
And the earth shall be given unto them for an inheritance. The earth shall be given unto them for an inheritance.
Or the meek shall inherit the earth.
Mm-hmm. And
Right.
they
Sermon
shall,
on Torah, right?
so we don't want to be cut off from the earth.
Right.
So
which is where most classical, which is where most classic rapture theories point to, that we're just removed from the earth, so we're not sharing in their troubles, not
right, and that's not the case, because as we just saw just earlier up, her just calls these people up on first of first fruits, and the destruction is going to happen the day after, on the 17th of the first moon. They get called up on the 16th day.
The day, which in Jewish tradition is actually the day wherein they judge whether or not you have successfully purged your house of all
leaven, aka false teachings, right?
Yep.
False teachings.
So that's actually a valuable lesson that can be learned from a tradition of men.
Right. We just have to be careful with traditions of men. There are some nuggets of truth in some traditions, right?
Right. But yeah, don't go, okay, there was a nugget of truth in that one tradition of the Pharisees, so they must all be true.
Yeah, that's not the case. So one thing I want to add here, because I think you're done with your statement.
Okay, and they shall multiply and wax strong, and their children shall grow up without sin unto salvation.
All right, so before we get into that, I want to go say something else real quick. So on the parable of the 10 virgins, so the parable of the 10 virgins has two classes of people in it: celestial and terrestrial. So the celestials are keeping all of the law, okay? Terrestrials are keeping some of the law, where telestials are like keeping almost none, if any, of the law, okay?
Telestial people are whores. They're not.
Yes, they're whores. I was going to say that, but you beat me to it. They're not virgins. Telestials are whores. The virgins are the celestials and the terrestrials, because terrestrials are attempting to keep the law. And that's what we see in the parable of the 10 virgins. There's a group that are somewhat keeping the law, but not completely, right? That's what, because they were there waiting.
The ones that are keeping.
But the celestials are the ones that are keeping it completely.
They have the oil.
Right.
They have.
And so this goes along with the celestials getting the inheritance, right?
Well, and that would be why the parable is cited in connection with this.
Correct.
Why the parable of the 10 virgins is cited in connection with, and the earth shall be given them for an inheritance.
Right, because it was the virgins who kept everything that was completely prepared for the second coming that are going to inherit it. Hence, they're going to own it. Inheritance has to do with owning. And D&C 76 brings out it's those who receive the celestial glory inherit everything that the Father has, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that includes the earth. But anyways, I don't know if you want to read 58 again, Ben, since I interrupted a little bit on that.
And the earth shall be given unto them for an inheritance, and they shall multiply and wax strong, and their children shall grow up without sin unto salvation.
So children just is means multiple things: literal children and also followers, right?
Yes. Yes. But that is that promise right there is one of the things that keeps me going. verses 56 through 58 and in section 45 they're just so meaningful to me. Because to see my children grow up without sin unto salvation would be a marvelous thing.
Amen to that. I
Yeah.
hope they can learn to be more wise than I was.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well, but the thing
Uh,
is,
okay.
foolishness in the past does not preclude wisdom in the present.
Correct. Because there's
For the
repentance,
future.
right?
Right. Because
Yeah.
after all, for most people, the wisdom we gain is the wisdom of fools.
Mhm.
Yes, unfortunately.
Because we gain it because we were foolish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't argue that.
So
Nope.
let me read the last one, at least that I have here. We can go to the section and read more if you guys want, but I do want to read this one. For Yahweh shall be in their midst. So I will say tabernacles. In fact, even the parable of the virgins that's being brought out here also points to tabernacles, because Passover unleavened is deliverance from the most wicked, okay, which happened just above. And then the judgment of what glory you receive has to do with a day of atonement and tabernacles.
Right.
Yeshua's coming back at tabernacles. And then for Yahweh shall be in their midst, because he will come down, tabernacles, and his glory shall be among them, those who inherit everything.
And I should
Celestial glory.
And I should just like to point out, given that we're entering into the time of the Festival of Lights, that what we celebrate at this time is the light entering the tabernacle. And so this is one of the reasons why for the next couple of weeks it would be good if we could, why don't we all look for something like that?
Sure, I'm open to that.
Look for music that
goes with tabernacle.
Celebrates bringing the light into our tabernacle, the light that is Torah, the lamp unto our feet.
So in support of this, 9 moons after Hanukkah is tabernacles.
Yes.
Right? Which
What is that?
Hanukkah is about the light entering the temple or the tabernacle, as including our physical bodies. That's when Yeshua was conceived. And he was born during the first day of tabernacles. So,
nice.
The imagery really fits. And I will also say, in New Testament, it states that Yeshua tabernacled, and they say it that way on purpose. And the Book of Mormon brings out in Mosiah 2-5, which was given during tabernacles, that the king will be born, because it's during tabernacles. These subjects are done at specific times on purpose.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So can we pause?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me finish the verse. And he will be their king, because he will literally be here, and their lawgiver, because he will be literally here on earth giving the laws.
And honestly, he already is. But there's some things that need to happen before his rightful place is acknowledged.
Right. So he is giving his laws, but most of people are not keeping them right now, where during the millennium,
he is
they
the
will.
king, and he is currently the king of those who are obeying
Correct.
the law that he has given. Right.
But now it'll be the whole earth listening, right? So
Correct.
All right. So with that, unless we want to say anything else, I'll do the pause.
Let's have a pause.
Okay.